And we're live. Exciting times. So, this marathon is to support IckaAid, which is a charity fundraiser that we've been going on for the past month and a half about to support our good friend Julie, also known as Erica, also known as Ika, with back surgery and associated costs. So for the next 60 hours, we have a marathon for you guys, so I hope you will enjoy. Speaking of, I think we're just about ready to start. So Sable, I will pass it over to you, and you can go whenever.
All right, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. This is going to be Spyro 80 Dragons, and timing is going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. So like I said, welcome to 80 Dragons. For this category, our goal is to get all 80 dragons that are present in Spyro 1. This is the remaster of Spyro, and excuse me. We're going to need to travel from world to world in order to get these 80 dragons. We won't be fighting the final boss because he doesn't have any dragons with him. So we're just going to be zooming around freeing these guys. They were trapped in crystal. The story is they were trapped in crystal because they didn't say some very nice things to the main bad guy of the game, and he got kind of salty about it. So as we go through here, we're going to be making a couple of strategic decisions based on sort of what we're trying to accomplish next. That will determine whether we're leaving the level by exiting, whether we're leaving the level by using the guidebook. If we exit levels, we come out at the portal that we went into the level in. If we use the guidebook, we'll come out where the balloonist, who transports us between worlds, would drop us off if we use the balloon. And sometimes that's going to be a little more advantageous to go that way. It's going to take us far away from the level we were just in. And sometimes that can save us a lot of running time going in between levels here. We don't need to worry at all about things like gems, dragon eggs, any of that, because we're going to use a pretty major glitch to completely cheat the game into thinking that we're allowed to go places that we're really not. Normally the rules for traveling between worlds would be that to leave Artisans, which is the world that we're in now, we'd need 10 dragons. We do still need to do that, but since we're trying to get all the dragons anyway, not a big deal. Peacekeepers, the next world, can only be left if you have 1,200 gems. After that, we're going to need 5 dragon eggs, 50 dragons, and 6,000 gems. It takes a long time to get 6,000 gems. So we're just going to completely ignore all of the rules that say we have to get 6,000 gems, and instead we're going to kind of cheat ourselves out of bounds a little bit later and into a developer's tool that they didn't remove before they released the game. And we're going to just go to whatever worlds we want without obeying the rules. So that'll happen in Peacekeepers, and it'll actually happen twice because we have 2 worlds with gem requirements. So this is an example of a time we're going to guidebook. Town Square is kind of off on its own, far away from everything else. So we want to guidebook and get back to the center of the home world where it's a bit closer to the next place we want to be. Dark Hollow is going to be a particularly important level for us here in Artisans because we do have one dragon that's inside the boss level, Toasty, and bosses in this game are occasionally hidden behind big portals that look like dragon heads, and we can't open those dragon heads unless we fulfill certain requirements. In Artisans, it's going to be that we have to leave one of these levels through the return home portal, and so this level is going to be the easiest place for us to do that. So we've got a dragon right next to the return home, which is why we choose this level in particular to do that. So here's Toasty's portal. And since we've gone through the Dark Hollow return home, the dragon head is open. We don't actually really need to fight any bosses in this run. Most of the time their dragon is right before them, so that you have a save point before you fight them. Blowhard will be an exception. We're going to have to toast him once before he'll move on. But for the most part, we're not facing any of the game's bosses, including Nasty. We won't actually get to see Nasty at all. And again, we can guidebook because that's going to be a little bit faster, a little bit closer to where we're trying to go next. And that's the end of Artisans. We have already done everything we need to do.
Are you ready to go?
So here in Peacekeepers, we're going to be cleaning up the levels throughout the world, and then right before we leave, we're not worrying about the 1200 gem requirement to leave Peacekeepers, because who wants to spend time collecting gems when you can not collect gems? So instead, once we've cleaned up the world, once we've gotten all the dragons, we're going to leave by doing that big balloonist glitch that I was talking about earlier. I'll explain it as we get a little bit closer. But we are going to be doing that twice. Once to cheat ourselves into Nasty's world, and once to cheat ourselves into Magic Crafter, which would be the next world after this one. For the sake of a little bit of marathon safety, we're actually going to go back and get this extra life. If for some reason the balloonist glitches don't work, it is going to cost us a life, and we'd really rather not game over.
if I can interrupt for 1 second.
Sure thing.
So we have our first donation. Alex the Ordinary donates $40 with no comment, so thank you, Alex. And it actually just crushed the first bid board that we had, which was for the next run. So that one's out of the way fast, so thank you very much.
Very nice. So here in Clifftown, we're going to encounter our first egg thief. We're going to need 5 eggs in order to leave magic crafters. Technically, we could do this glitch that we're going to do one more time to skip out on the need to get these thieves. But the thieves are so close to where we're going to be anyway that it's pretty much the same, if not a little bit faster, just to get the thieves than it is to cheat our way around them. And whenever we're getting thieves, we're always trying to get them while we're jumping in the air, because for some reason, the game thinks that if you're in the air when you get a thief, you don't need to watch his little cutscene where he gives you the egg. And obviously that's just a little bit faster. Off to our right over there would have been a flight level. This category does not do flight levels because the only thing inside of them is gems. And since we're skipping both of the gem requirements, we don't need to worry about that at all. So Dr. Shemp is this world's boss. Again, not gonna fight Shemp. We'll spare him for another day. Because the dragon is right at the base of his pedestal, so we don't need to worry about him at all. So as we leave Shemp and we're getting ready to wrap up Peacekeepers, we need to start thinking about this glitch that's going to be coming up. It is multi-part, and there's lots of opportunity to get outcomes a little bit different than what you might hope for, I guess you could say. So the glitch starts by talking to a dragon. Can be any dragon. We're going to use Magnus, who is right outside of Ice Cavern. If you free a dragon, a fairy will pop up and save your progress. And you can talk to that fairy if you want to replay the dragon, you know, if you just liked him and wanted to see him again, or if you want to save your game. If you talk to that fairy while you are gliding away from the fairy, and then you do your button presses just right, just before you hit the ground from your glide, you will be able to talk to that fairy anywhere. Like, you can walk away from the dragon platform and the fairy will just sort of be with you. That's a glitch. That's not supposed to happen. And that's called fairy storage. The good thing about fairy storage is that when you're talking to a fairy, the game thinks that you're controlling Spyro, because why wouldn't you be controlling Spyro? You're, you know, trying to free a dragon. And so, by talking to a fairy, you can regain control of Spyro at a time when normally you wouldn't be able to control him at all. That's important because we're going to hop into the balloonist balloon to leave the world that we're in. And normally we wouldn't be able to control Spyro, but if we talk to the fairy, we'll regain control of him and be able to charge out of the balloon. Charging out of the balloon is going to let us go like out of bounds and into a developer's tool that they just kind of left in the game. The developer's tool just completely bypasses all requirements to travel to any world that we want. So essentially, by talking to the fairy while we're in the balloon, we gain control of Spyro, and we get to go out of bounds.
Hi, Spyro. Hi, Spyro. Hi, Spyro.
So there's fairy storage. Now we're going to talk to the balloonist. I'm going to tell him to go to Artisans, because it's the only place I can go. But now I talk to the fairy, so I've gained control of Spyro. Out of the balloon. And down here, we have to land on this little... that thing. That's the tool. That's what it looks like. So here's the dev menu. It's going to let us go anywhere we want, even though we haven't fulfilled the rules. So we're going to choose to go to Nasties. That would normally cost 6,000 gems. It's loading 2 worlds at once, that's why it's kind of going funky. Because we said to go to Artisans, but then we also said to go to Nasties, so the game is super confused right now. We'll death abuse so that we can clear the game of taking us to Artisans. It's kind of thinking, okay, I've done that, I'm done. And now if we just go ahead and quit, we will be in Nasty's world. Let's just go ahead and grab these two.
Hey,
Nasty's
didn't I
ancient
already
history
free you?
now.
You're in
So,
Nasty's
what's in
world
there?
now,
I
Spyro.
believe this
You
is
are the
Nasty's
dragon that must
treasure
defeat
hoard.
it.
But
Bring
the
him
gate
on.
will only
I'm
open
ready.
if you have found
Reach the
everything in the
exit
Dragon
in each
Kingdom.
of Nasty's
Come
lands.
back when you
Then
have
you
reached
can challenge the
100%.
Zork himself.
Always good when we can free 2 dragons at once. And that happened because we weren't supposed to be in Nasty's world. We didn't have the 6,000 gems, we didn't follow the rules, so the game was like, why are you here? I don't know what to do. So it didn't load things correctly. That's also why there wasn't a dragon head over Twilight Harbor, the level that we're in now. Normally, in order to access this level, you'd have to complete the level before it and go through the return home portal. But because we cheated our way in here, the game didn't load the assets that it needed. So we're able to just hop in here. And it will be important for us to guidebook out instead of leave the level, because by this point, the game is kind of caught up. We're here now, it's loaded the things it needs, and that means the dragon head will be loaded. So had we just exited the level, we would have been stuck forever in that dragon head, because it would have been closed right on top of us. we're going to go ahead and travel back to Ice Cavern because we've completed Nasty's world, which would normally be the very final world. And now we're going to need to progress like we normally would. We need to go to Magic Crafters, but again, we don't have enough gems to do that. So we're going back to Ice Cavern. We're going back to do the same glitch with Magnus again. But this time we're just going to Magic Crafters instead of Nasty. So again, we're gonna hop on this platform, try to pick up fairy storage. And she's being kind of a jerk about it.
Hi, Spyro. Hi, Spyro.
There we go. So now we can talk to the fairy anywhere we want to.
Hop on, Spyro.
Hi, Spyro.
We'll talk to the fairy here to regain control of Spyro in the balloon, charge out of the balloon, and try to land in that dev tool. This time we're going to choose to go to Magic Crafters, since we can go anywhere. And it's going to be loading Magic Crafters and Artisans at the same time, since I did say to go to both worlds. We'll Death Abuse to clear the game of trying to take us to Artisans. It always gets so confused and tries to play like the intro cutscene of the game. It just has no idea what's happening. And then quit out again, and we should be in Magic Crafters. Now normally there would be a thief right here, but again, because the game didn't expect us to be here, it didn't load some of the things that it needed to load in order to, you know, look normal. So that thief is not there right now. We'll have to pick up a backup in order to get those 5 eggs to leave. Now this category is timed on in-game time, not real time. In-game time does not pass while we're talking to a dragon, so we're going to actually let this dragon play for a little bit, so that the cycling that's going on in this level, like this door opening and closing, will still happen in the background without taking any extra in-game time. And in that way we can kind of manipulate the cycles to our advantage without taking any extra time. And again, we'll get that thief in the air so that we don't have to watch his little egg cutscene. Not a big deal. If we hit him while we're touching the ground, just takes, you know, another second or two. Not a big deal. Kind of common to have that happen. The first wizard here was just a smidge slow in... Wow, that's not very common though. I just got sniped. What a jerk. But no big deal. Deaths, especially in Spyro, as compared to, some other speedruns, are not a particularly big deal because it mostly just passes real time, which, the categories are not timed on, so... We are going to need to be a little careful, because that accidental death did obviously take away one of our lives. Part of the reason why I took that extra life earlier for marathon safety. We are going to take an intentional death in Wizard Peak up here, and that's going to leave us with 0. It's alright to game over. We can just pick up right where we left off. But we'd rather not if we can help it. So there, we'll take an intentional death because that's going to take us back to the dragon, and that's going to be much faster than trying to do this any other way. And that will get us our 5th egg, and we are good to leave this world. Now throughout the run, I have been running into fodder animals, off and on. Those are the little sheep, bunnies, everything that gives butterflies for Sparks to eat. I'm doing that on purpose because every 10 fodder that you pop, you will get an extra life butterfly. And I'm trying to set it up so that we pop that butterfly in the next world, Beastmakers, because it's certainly the hardest world, and not only do we need a life, but if you get an extra life butterfly, it'll take Sparks back to yellow or full health, no matter what he's at. So in the hardest world, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to be hurt, it's really helpful to have one of those pop sometimes when you need it the most. So we're just kind of trying to set that up ahead of time. Here's the boss, Blowhard. We're going to hit him once, and he's going to be the only boss that we hit. We have to hit him just because there's a wall that won't lower until he's been hit once. It lets us get to this dragon.
Would you like to go?
So off to Beastmakers we go. We are already approaching the end worlds of this game. We have Beastmakers and Dreamweavers, and that's going to be it. So again, we're just trying to pop this fodder so that we can get an extra life sooner rather than later. And we'll do the same thing here in Terrace Village that we've done before, with letting a dragon play. Because again, in-game time doesn't pass when a dragon is playing, but the cycles that are happening throughout the level are still going to be happening. So we're going to try to manipulate the cycles a little bit by letting a dragon play, so that it can be a smidge easier to get through here. We should be nearly to that extra life via fodder, which is going to be really helpful, because Misty Bog is pretty unforgiving, and we're definitely going to need to take some intentional damage in order to get to the end of the level. So hopefully we can pop that extra life. We're going to be entering Misty twice. It's the only level that we're going to leave before we get all the dragons. The run will actually finish in Misty. We'll go through all of Beastmakers, all of Dreamweavers, and then we'll come back to Misty. Because it kind of branches off in a weird Y shape, and it's faster to do it twice than it is to backtrack. So we need to take some intentional damage here just to hop across. We'll sneak around here, and that's going to be the end of our first stint in Misty. That does mean that the run ends at what I would say that most speedrunners agree is the hardest single room in the game, as far as speedrunning is concerned. Ton of enemies that all have very unforgiving hitboxes, I guess you could say. There's our extra life. Popping that right before we go into treetops. So that will bring sparks all the way back up to yellow. And it gives us a little bit of a cushion because we have a couple more tricks left in this run that could cost us a life, including one here in treetops. We're going to try to double back on a supercharge. Instead of going all the way around the level and picking up supercharges as we go, we're just going to zip around the side and sneak ourselves from the beginning of the puzzle all the way to the end. It'll make a bit more sense as we get there. There we go. So normally we would have had to ride that supercharge all the way around the level, taking multiple supercharges along the way until we finally made it back to that platform. But by doing it that way, we just kind of sneak ourselves down and avoid having to do all of that.
I can interrupt one more time.
For sure.
Before I remember that supercharge, it was not a good time. But we got another donation. Mr. Crunchy Brown donates $2 and puts it towards the Goron Bid War incentive. So thank you, Mr. Crunchy Brown.
So here we go into Metalhead. He's the boss of this world. Again, not going to fight him because the dragon is just, you know, right in front of him so that you have a save spot for if you struggle against fighting him. You'll always go back to a dragon when you die, unless you game over, of course. Which is why they put the boss dragons right in front of the boss. So that's the end of Beastmakers. We are hopping into our final world now. The requirement to leave this world is 50 dragons, but since we've been getting dragons for the entire game, that's, you know, not a problem at all. We've already got 62.
Are you ready to go?
So on to Dreamweavers. That's going to be our final world. Once we finish up Dreamweavers, it's just a quick hop back to Misty, and that will be the end of the run. We have one more big trick coming up in Dreamweavers that's going to happen at Haunted Towers, and it's the reason why I'm glad we did get that extra life. It's another one of those tricks where, you know, if you fail, it's kind of an automatic death. So it's nice to have that cushion. And truth be told, that Haunted Towers trick, which we are going to be trying to do here in just a minute, is actually only possible on one of the controllers that I have. It's very tight, and that controller really needs to be broken in and super responsive, or it just doesn't work. It's also going to be important that we guidebook out of Haunted Towers, not exit the level. Because in-game time does pass whenever we're riding a whirlwind, and there are a whole bunch of whirlwinds that we need to ride if we exit the level. If we guidebook, we can skip all of that. It's about a 15-second difference, which is pretty significant in a run like this. Alright, so let's gear up for that trick. We're gonna try to double back on a supercharge again. This one's gonna look a little bit different. And as I said before, it's much tighter. That looks good. So first try Haunted Towers, can't complain about that. And we'll exit via guidebook, like I was talking about before. That'll prevent us from riding those whirlwinds. And now the rest of the run is just don't get hit. That's what it boils down to. Especially here in Dark Passage. The enemies here who hit you have really, really long animations, and we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. It's very much cycle-based, like some of the other levels, so we are going to use a dragon or two to reset the cycles in our favor. But in general, it's mostly just these big red dogs. So for example, we're gonna let this dragon play because as you can see, these dogs
for releasing me.
are ready and waiting. He's not quite long enough to completely prevent that from happening, but we can use him a little bit to try to cycle those dogs closer to something we can deal with. Just 9 dragons left, we're almost done. And since all of the tricks in this run did work on the first try, it is looking like we're going to come in under estimate. No matter what we do, we can't avoid having to wait for these fairies. It looks like you can just jump over there, and technically you kinda can, but there is a big invisible wall until those fairies show up. So, while you can make it as far as height is concerned, the game itself will stop you from progressing that way. That wall doesn't really exist, so we can just go ahead and charge right through that. Now obviously as we're wrapping up here, if you guys have never played the remaster of Spyro, it is fantastic. They did such a wonderful job of bringing this game to life in a new way. Not only as far as visuals, but just as far as a little bit more creativity in the dragons, and the movement feels fantastic. I highly recommend that you at least try it out. It's very relaxing to play casually. And I mean, obviously I've been sitting here breaking the game, making it take us to places that we're not supposed to be, but that's not what makes it fun, you know? It's a fun game of its own merits. So this is the boss world, Jock. Again, we don't need to fight him. But he has 2 dragons because he's super serious compared to the rest of the bosses. He's supposed to be the final boss that you fight before Nasty, but I don't believe in doing things in order. Now, instead of leaving, we're just going to hop straight to Misty. And our timing is going to stop in Misty, so we need to get ready for that. We got 2 dragons left. And we are just going to make a breakneck sprint for the end of the level here. We have yellow sparks, which is fantastic at this point. We are going to take damage, almost guaranteed. Timing will stop once I bring up the menu after freeing this dragon. I'll call time though. So there's a little bit of damage, a little bit more. Why we want yellow sparks. This is the final dragon. So get ready and time. 2046. That is much faster than I expected. The world record is 2036, held by me. So I am stoked that we were able to pull out a run like that at a marathon. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Obviously I had fun, and I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks for...
Yeah, that was a good run.
Thanks for all the donations and all of the fun.
If you guys want to catch more of Sable, go give her a bit of love. But yeah, good stuff, good run. Any last words?
I mean, I think I'm good. I guess I run Spyro essentially all the time, so if you guys are interested in watching Spyro runs, I do see that my link is in the chat, so come check it out. I'm a variety speed runner. I run The Last Guardian, close to taking the world record in that, so lots of stuff to do. But thank you guys for having me.